Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is one of the best games ever made, and it easily takes its place among my favorite 2D platformers out there. The absolute best thing about this game, other than the music, is the imaginative and unique levels. Every single one has something to offer, and they all stand out in their own way, so I have to rank them, worst to best. Well, what exactly counts as a level? Every numbered and lettered stage will be counted, including the levels in the secret world. The only stages not ranked here are the boss fights, as I don't feel they fit the spirit of the list. Although it's worth mentioning that this game has surprisingly really good ones. I say surprisingly because returns, well, I didn't like those very much. At the end, I'll average the scores together to get a world ranking as well, so that'll be interesting to see. And I know I say this a lot, but I really mean it here. This game is fantastic, so just because a level ranks low does not mean it's bad. The standard of quality is just super high, but with that yapping out of the way, it's time to rank. 57. Shoal Atoll. This level's based around finding keys, and it's almost more like a Metroidvania than a normal platformer level, but right there, that's kind of my biggest problem with it. It's not a bad idea necessarily, but most of this level is just spent swimming around looking for the next chest you can open. This type of design works in something like Hollow Knight, but this is a 2D platformer. There's not really that much in the way of combat, and ultimately it just feels like you're wandering around for a while before you just figure out how to leave the level. It isn't terrible though, because finding the right key for the right chest can be kind of fun, and it took me a little while to realize that at that one part I needed to collect all the bananas for the door to open. So even if I think this is the worst level in the game, it's not completely terrible or anything. I just think its core design doesn't really mesh with what this game is very well. It's a unique side thing, and I like that it's in the game, but at the very least, it's definitely the least replayable level for sure. 56. Icicle Arsenal. This level's just kind of weird. I think the context around it is a big reason why I don't really like it that much, because this is one of the last levels in the game. It's the last secret level in the final world, so I just kind of expect it to be a little more climactic, I suppose. That's not to say anything of its design though, it's fine. I just don't think it really stands out in any particular way, especially as one of the final levels. I say that, but I will admit, this is one of the harder levels in the game, for me anyway. That last Kong letter in particular took me a while to figure out how to get, and to be honest, it still feels a little bit janky, but it's fine. It's kind of hard to talk about this level because it's so weird. It's just a random snow level as one of the final ones in the game. It doesn't have that interesting design, it's just kind of there. And I think for a game as outstanding as this, a level that's just kind of there is probably going to be the biggest sin you can make. Although I won't lie, I was kind of crashing out when I was playing this level. 55. Meltdown Mayhem. Well, we have a similar story here. This is the final main level in the whole game, but it doesn't really live up to that. I like the idea of rushing through a crumbling ice volcano. I mean, that's awesome. And on Rambi, no less, it's even better. I don't know if it was deliberate, but the music choice just doesn't really fit that for me. It's more of a slow song, and I just think it changes the vibe of the level than it would be otherwise. The reason why I think it might have been on purpose is because the gameplay of this level isn't as, hold right as you might think. It's actually a lot slower to play than you would expect. There's a lot of stuff you have to wait for and platforms you can't just jump on immediately. It's honestly just a very strange final stage. Because when I look at it, I expect, oh, it's going to be some fast-paced, intense level, but it's not really that. I know for some people, taking into account the music and its placement in the game is kind of a lame thing to do. I'm sure others wouldn't count those as big factors, but this is the last level in the game, you know what I mean? It just doesn't live up to that for me. 54. Crumble Cavern. And with this entry, we continue our trend of the biggest problem in these lower ranking levels simply just being a little bit boring. Not that this is the most dull level ever, but compared to a lot of the others, it just doesn't stand out that much. And that's fine, it's okay to have some levels that are a little bit more laid back, but it suffers in the ranking for it. You spend a lot of time in barrels and on these tilting platforms that go wherever the water tilts them to, and these are fine, but I never really was a fan of just the normal barrels that you blast through. Rocket barrels are cool, but I just don't care much for the normal barrels, if you know what I mean. They're a fine addition, but having levels that use them a lot isn't my favorite. I think they're better better as a thing to be interspersed throughout a level rather than done over and over and over. I do like how it parts. This level feels very precarious, almost like it's crumbling or something. I like the vines that can fall apart, and the end part in general is definitely the best section of the level, where all the stalactites are falling down behind you and you have to go up the vines. It's perfect, honestly. I wish more of the level was like that, although it's fine how it is. I still think this is a great level. I just don't think it's up to par necessarily with a lot of the others. And I mean, hey, that's a hell of a compliment towards this game. 53, Deep Keep. This is the first underwater level in the game, or, well, the first fully underwater level, so it has the job of teaching you how underwater mechanics work with breathing and everything, while also being a fun level to play in of itself. And I think it does an alright job. As the tutorial water level, it probably was never going to be amazing, but I think for what it is, it's not that bad. Water levels as a whole aren't as fun as the normal gameplay just because you don't get access to your normal moveset. They're closer to Rayman style water than Mario, and that is way better to me personally, at least. It gives you a lot more control over your character, and it actually makes these levels pretty fun for the most part. This level's focused a lot on timing around spikes and spinning spikes. You also have switches that you need to hit all in a row, but they spin, so you need to get them from the right angle. I think this is a pleasant stage, and it definitely doesn't really do anything wrong, but it's the introductory water level, so it's never gonna be that crazy. And this is the first level that I've covered so far that has a secret exit in it. Now, I don't know if this is a controversial take, but I actually kind of prefer how Returns did the secret levels, because in my opinion, secret exits just boil down to having to replay the level you've already done. So I won't say that the secret exit here is getting this level any favors, but it's honestly one of the most clever secret exits in the game. You have to go backwards against a current after pressing some switches with Dixie, and it's a fairly well hidden secret, so I like it for that. 52, Shipwreck Shore. My main complaint with Deep Keep was just that it was simple as a bit of a tutorial level for the water, so it would make sense that World 1 would get some of the same complaints. Overall, I think World 1 in this game does an amazing job, not only at teaching a new player, but still being fun for a returning one. And this level is a pretty good example of that. It has a big focus on grabbing onto the walls and, of course, the water. I think the vibe of this level is one of the strongest parts about it. Platforming on ships over the water is just a very cool feeling, especially the part at the end where you have to duck under the huge turbine. It's a very standout set piece for what is one of the first levels in the game. There isn't really much to talk about with this stage, but honestly, that's okay. It's one of the first ones in the game, and I think it does a good enough job introducing water and the climbable walls. 51, Panicky Paddles. This is another level that's split between ground and underwater gameplay. Now, I've already mentioned that overall, I do like ground gameplay more, but the combination of the two is fun enough. The main gimmick here is that there's these platforms that flip whenever a fruit will hit them. It's a fun obstacle to platform around, and I like its usage here. The spike balls in general just act as really solid obstacles to have to dodge. I will say though, the underwater can sometimes lead to annoying damage taken, because I mean, come on, how could I have seen that? My main problem with this level, honestly, is just when you go into that one extended water section where you have to go against the current, I find it to be really slow. Again, I don't hate water sections or anything, but this one in particular is just so slow. I mean, it just breaks the pace of the level completely to me, because instead of platforming on these platforms with the fruit and all of that, you just have to swim against a current. It's made even worse by the fact that there's a secret exit in this level also right at the end, and you need to keep Dixie through the whole thing to get it. I don't love secret exits, but it's alright. My favorite part of the level is actually the section near the end with the big spiky balls on the spinning platforms, because whenever they bounce down, they'll flip the platform and you need to go between them. It's especially good because they place a Kong letter, which presumably would be really easy to get with Dixie, but without her, it's one of the trickiest jumps in the game, honestly. 50, C-Stack Attack. I don't know what it is about this one, but I just never really vibed with it that much. It's all about bombs and falling platforms. You just gotta bomb your way through stuff and avoid these spiky thingies. Maybe I just don't like it because I don't enjoy having to wait for bombs. This level has fine design and everything, it's just, it doesn't really leave much of an impression on me. Maybe it is just a symptom of this game being as good as it is, but this level just never stood out to me in any real way whatsoever. It's fine, I mean, I don't dislike it, obviously. There's this one section where you have to throw bombs off of the platform you're standing on while you have to wait for another one to become open, and that's pretty cool. I do like that part. Actually, wait, I think I know what it is. It's the music. The music just never really felt like it fit for the stage. Again, it might seem like a weird complaint, but it doesn't, honestly. 49, Rodent Ruckus. The whole idea of the stage being about mice in a cave excavating for cheese is just just a really funny concept, and honestly, I think it works really well. But the thing is, that's probably the best thing about this stage. It's a rocket barrel level, and I actually do really like these. They are different from the normal gameplay, but I think it's a good mix-up. I just think that they're at their best when they're a little bit more complex than this. It's not this level's fault, since it's technically the first one in the game, but it's just a little bit too simple for me to like that much. Like I said, the best thing about this level is just all the animations with it. The whole theming and the idea, it's all done really well. I especially love the part where you're in the dark and you get lit up by spotlights. Yes, it can be kind of hard to see what's coming, but it's just such a cool set piece that I don't really mind. 48. Rocket Rails. Now this is the only level in the game that combines all three types of gameplay. Well, all three, not including underwater. You have normal grounded sections, and then you also have a minecart and rocket barrel part. The only problem is that since it does all three different things, it doesn't commit to any one of them. The minecart and rocket barrel sections are all really short and easy, so they just don't stand out very much. My favorite part of this level, despite the namesake being the vehicle parts, is actually just the grounded sections. I think for a secret world level, the concept is good, but it's not difficult enough, honestly. And I know that might sound like a weird complaint, but I think this is easily the easiest secret world level, and I just feel like I could have done it with a little bit more challenge. Although I do enjoy the part where you're going between the falling blocks. That's a really fun section. And the rocket barrel part, despite being good, again, is just kinda easy. Simplicity isn't bad, but if you're relying on those extra gameplay styles that are at a base level more simplistic than normal gameplay, I'd prefer it to be a little bit more challenging, especially for a secret world level. I still think it's a good stage, of course, but I do think it's the weakest of the secret world levels. 47. Zipline Shrine. I almost feel bad for this stage. It's a solid level and it's got good design all the way throughout, but the only thing is, yet again, and this might seem like a common complaint for these lower levels, it's just a little bit boring. And now, not in terms of 2D platformers. In terms of that, it's still a great stage, but for this game, I just don't think it stands out very much. It's mostly based around these platforms that sway from side to side, and of course, zip lines. Both of them are fun mechanics, but the stage is just kind of easy, and I don't want a stage being easy to be the main reason why I don't like it compared to the others, because there's plenty of great stages in this game that are not that hard. I don't even think this game is necessarily that hard in the first place, outside of a few levels that gave me a lot more trouble than the rest. But I think this stage's real problem really is just that it's forgettable, but I think as it is, it's still a chill time. The fact that it's at night at this shrine place is just a really cool vibe, almost reminiscent of the ruins from Donkey Kong Country Returns. I really enjoy the zip lines in this game, and I think that whenever they're used, it makes for a fun section. So of course I like that part of the stage as well. There's not much to complain about here. From the beginning where you're just going on the swaying platforms to the end where you have to jump up the bouncing ones, I think it's a solid all-around level. 46. Forest Folly. Now this stage looks amazing. Most of World 6 looks really pretty, but this stage, especially with the overgrown forest combined with the icy chill, it's so pretty. And I think the aesthetics of the stage are the best part about it, because unfortunately, I don't think the gameplay is that crazy. It's a lot of waiting, which I'm not the biggest fan of personally. Not a bad level, but it's very slow paced. And there's also this one Kong letter where it just goes away and you've no way of knowing basically, so you gotta know ahead of time. But I think that the snowflakes are fun to dodge in the set paths that they move in, and this level is at its best when you're not confined to moving platforms. It's just you dodging around the snowflakes. This level is really fun to play through, but I think it's just a little bit too slow for my taste. 45. Mangrove Cove. All the way from the last world to the first level of the game. And this is an amazing introduction. You get introduced to underwater and, well, I mean, just about everything else. I think it does its job as a first stage exceedingly well, and I like how it's not a simple jungle stage. It's got more unique theming here. You're in like a mechanical plane crash area, of course overgrown with greenery. And then you go out on the beach for some more, and then you end up barreling up a tree. For the first stage in the game, I think this one has a really good flow to it, and ends up being quite memorable even after you play it every other level. Now, of course, it's not really that crazy in terms of gameplay, but that's to be expected. It's the first level. I just think it does an amazing job at what it is. I especially love how you get to see the snowmads coming in on their boats near the end. It really showcases the threat that you'll be dealing with for the rest of the game. And the part with the swinging platforms also at the end is pretty nice, and it's more than you would expect from most first levels. I don't even think this level is that simple. If you told me this was like level 3 or something, I would probably believe you. Now, I know that might sound like a weird compliment, but I'm trying to say that I think this level's pretty good. 44. Aqueduct Assault. This is the stage based off the Ruins world from Returns, levels, and just like that, it's, you know, it's a little bit forgettable in the whole of World 6. But that doesn't mean it's bad or anything. I just think it's a little bit short, honestly. That's not really something that I can say about most other levels in this game, but this one really did feel like it just kind of ended a little bit too soon. World 6 in general feels like the levels are just kind of a little bit shorter than they could have been. Most of your time here is spent jumping on crumbling ruins, I mean, of course, and it's always fun to jump over stuff that are crumbling apart as you run across it. I hate to sound like a broken record though, my problem is just that this level doesn't do that much to stand out. It's fun, but that's it. It's fun. Admittedly though, I do really like the gimmick of the platforms falling apart as you run on them. That's seriously just like one of my favorite things. I love it when platformers do that. But unfortunately, the runtime in this level doesn't really give it a chance to grow and iterate on that. You just kind of run through it and then, oh, it's over. I still think it's really good. I just wish it was a little bit longer at least. 43. Twilight Terror. The first thing to point out with this level is the fact that they play a remix of Sticker Brush Symphony at the start. I don't know why they would put a remix of such a beloved song only at this very short section, but I mean, it's cool that it's here. This is another Rocket Barrel level, so it's pretty fun at a baseline, but I think this one overall has more to it than Rodent Ruckus. You have to dodge around these eels, and they're fun to go between. I especially like the part where some of them are a different color to denote that they're gonna jump up. It's a really good way to telegraph it. And the part at the middle where you're dodging around all the fish, it's a really cool vibe. With stuff moving all over the place, it just feels a little bit more hectic than the last one, which is definitely a good thing. I don't think there's really much wrong with this level, and I like most of what it tries to do. That one short part where you go inside for a little bit is pretty neat, because it's kind of a tight space to fit in. But flying through there, you might notice right above you that there's another secret exit, and that's the main thing that I don't really like about this level. There's not only one secret exit, but two. One of them is around halfway through, but the other is at the very end. I just don't see the point of putting two secret exits in a single level. You need to play through most of it 3 times. It's not like the one at the end is really that crazy anyway, because all you need is to have Dixie all the way to the end. And that's not that hard to do because it's a Rocket Barrel level. All you need to do is just not die. I think this level's good and it's got a really appealing theme, but I just don't like how there's 2 whole secret exits. It just makes it a little bit annoying to play through that many times. 42. Cannon Canyon. This stage is another one where you spend the majority of it in the blast barrels. I already talked about why I don't really like those that much, but I think this level was more to offer than the last one that was focused on that. And it also has more parts that are outside of the barrels. Dodging around the explosives is actually really fun, and I think they're a great obstacle. It makes the barrel sections better than, well, most others in the game, to be honest. It's still mostly made out of barrel sections though, so I can't say that I love those parts as a whole. I just think the way that everything is blowing up, it makes for a really good theme, and especially the final barrel section has a lot of tension to it. This level isn't very long, and it isn't my favorite gameplay-wise for a lot of it, but I do like to dodge around the explosives quite a bit. 41. Baobab Bonanza. A lot of this stage is spent on flowers, and the way they tilt from side to side depending on where you're standing is a really good idea. I like being able to use them to reach different places, and those in conjunction with the, I guess, baobabs that you need to jump over is a really good combination. The way they roll down slopes is a little bit strange, so you have to get used to it. They're not just spheres, so they don't roll perfectly normal. And the part of the end where you have to run away from the huge one is definitely a highlight, because you go across the flowers that you've been using for the whole rest of the level. I like how perilous this level can feel sometimes with all the bottomless pits, but overall it's a fairly standard level, so I don't rate it too highly. 40. Mountain Mania. I think despite the fact that this is the first Rambi level, it's a bit of an improvement over Meltdown Mayhem. I think Rambi is used very well here, because he makes it a fast-paced level, but you still have to pay attention to what you're doing. There's a lot of fun jumps, and you never get bored here. I especially love the parts with the swaying platforms, because they combine with Rambi really well. Even just seeing the falling debris in the background is an amazing addition and adds to the atmosphere in such a good way. And my favorite part is when you get to multiple boxes that are swaying from side to side and you can jump back and forth between them. It's just really good level design and super satisfying to get through. Overall, this level is just super solid. The only thing is that because it's a Rambi level, you do just kind of spend most of it running forward. That's not a problem because it's still very fun to play through, but I just don't think it has as unique of design as a lot of others. That's not me trying to hate on this level because I do really like basically everything about it. I'm also just trying to explain why it isn't higher, which to be honest I feel like I'm doing that a lot, but you kinda have to when you got levels this good. 39. Canopy Chaos. For a World 1 stage, this has a lot of sauce. It leans a lot more into the mechanical theme than any other World 1 level, and I think that's to its benefit. You get to go around a lot of spikes and moving parts, which is very satisfying to go over, especially with donkeykong, who is used to amazing effect in this level. As this is the donkeykong tutorial, it's basically built for him, and he's really fun to play with. Being able to bounce bounce over spikes is just such a fun thing to do, and this level makes great use of it, especially since you're in, well, what the name would suggest, a canopy. It feels very perilous, especially when you go out onto the trees. I've said this a lot, and I'm probably going to continue to keep saying it, but this level's theming is a really strong aspect to it. It just looks amazing. The only thing I don't really like about this stage is that there is a secret exit right at the end. In fact, it's after the end. So while that isn't my favorite thing, I still think this level is such a good time, especially for the first world in the game. 38. Frantic Fields. This is the second Rambi level in the game, and in my opinion, it's the best one, because it has a good combination of what I like out of a Rambi level. You get to run through a lot of stuff, but there's also some more methodical platforming in here as well. The whole atmosphere of this stage, of course being a huge storm, is really good. The lightning and the wind all over the place gives the stage a very unique vibe. I love the parts where there's stuff flying at you from the background. It really makes the tornado feel like such a big threat, and the platforms that sway from side to side or rise up and down, everything's affected by the theme here, and it makes the level very thematically coherent. When you have to run against the winds with stuff flying at you, that's one of the best parts, because you really feel like you're fighting against nature. And then of course we have the platforms that fall apart as you walk across them. Combined with the lightning and mini tornadoes, it's all amazing. But then at the end you go right into the tornado, and you have to platform across floating platforms while stuff is flying at you. This stage uses Rambi incredibly and has a great theme in of itself. Platforming through a storm does not get boring. 37. Jelly Jamboree. This stage is based around jellies that you have to bounce on. Bouncing gimmicks are just going to be fun at a default, but this level does a great job with them as well, because you have three types of jellies. The normal purple ones, the green ones which bounce you higher, and then the blue ones which will activate switches. All three of those are used in conjunction to make a very fun stage, because you have to make sure that the blue ones send the other ones to the right location. I also like how when there's items stuck inside of the jelly, when you platform into the one next to it, it'll pop out. That's used for a clever Kong letter. I think it's hard to go wrong with a level that's based around bouncy platforms, because they're just so fun to jump on at a base level. But this level does a good job mixing them together, especially with the unique types of them. I think it could have done a little bit more with its concept, but as it is, I think it still did a great job. 36. Spinning Spines. As a temple level, this is another one that's mostly known for its difficulty, and I like that about it. I still don't know how I feel about there being no checkpoints, but it is what it is. Most of the stages spent platforming around, well, spinning spines, I suppose. They move in what looks to be a 3D plane, so you just have to make sure that you're stepping on them when they're at where you are on the Z-axis. The other part of the stage is spent going over lava around these pokey spikes, and you have to jump over enemies. It's pretty cool. The part where you have to platform up spines is also very good, because it's fast-paced and intense, but it's also not too easy. The only thing with this level is that it isn't very long. I suppose that's nice with the fact that there's no checkpoints, but it is another one of those ones that just kind of feels like it ends before it really gets a chance to do much of anything. In fact, my favorite part of the whole stage is actually the beginning, which isn't usually the case. That said though, this is still a very fun stage from start to finish, so I'm not trying to diminish how good it is. It's just one of those cases where I think it could have been a little bit better. 35. Windmill Hills. This course has to be the definition of simple fun. Sure, it's nothing complicated, especially compared to a lot of the levels I've been covering recently, but despite that, it manages to still stand out just because of how well designed it is. You'll never guess what the stage is based around. Shockingly, you spend a lot of time here around windmills. I haven't verified if you're in the hills yet, but you know, maybe. Of course, this is another situation with moving platforms, but I'm still fine with them. They don't kill the pace for me here, and they're fun to try to jump between while avoiding what the cycles are. You can sort of find your own path through, and this stage also has some of those crumbling platforms that I really like. As much as I like World 1, getting to this stage feels like it's really the beginning of the game, if you know what I mean. My favorite part is the section near the end where all the windmills are made almost exclusively out of rickety platforms, and you have to jump between them really fast or else you, well, you know, fall and die. The stage also has a lot of barrel blast sections, which I do actually like. I know I've said multiple times how I'm not the biggest fan of when they're overused, but I think when they're used a normal amount, there's nothing wrong with that, and their usage here is fairly good to me. The stage might not be the flashiest in the world, and to be honest, it doesn't have much that it can call its own, but I still think it does a simple idea very well, so for what it's worth, it has its place in the game. 34. Trunk Twister. As the introductory minecart level, this is perfect. Even just comparing it to Crazy Kart from Returns, you can see such a huge difference. A lot of this level is spent platforming around crashed planes through the jungle, and the way that the plane parts move all around and everything is just so good. There's a real sense of movement to this level, and the way that it's the first minecart is very impressive, especially the part where you spiral through and then a plane swings over you. It's just so cool. I think this is honestly one of my favorite themed levels in the game, and the part where you fall down a huge distance is iconic. Everything about this level is amazing. I know I said a lot of good things about basically every previous one, but this is where the levels start getting really good. I have absolutely no complaints here, and honestly I really wish that I could have put it higher, but I just can't with how many levels there are. This is such a creative introduction for the minecart, and I don't think it could have been improved upon at all. 33. Blurry Flurry. From the first minecart level to the last rocket barrel. As the final vehicle level in the whole game, excluding rocket rails, this level is very climactic. Ice is falling down all around you and you have to make it through a lot of tight corridors. This is a very satisfying ending for the vehicle levels, and one of the best parts about it is the music track, which is just as bombastic as it needs to be for what this level is. Although I will say this level isn't as hard as I would have expected it to be. Maybe I'm just comparing it to the Returns vehicle levels, but those were way more difficult. That's not necessarily a bad thing though, because this one still has a lot of nice touches, like being able to see the bat encased in ice. I like dodging all the snowballs, especially when they're flying up into the air and when glaciers keep peeking out of the sides of the mountain. Oh, it's so cool. Especially when you're going diagonally up outwards. And that leads to the best part. You go into a big snowdown and have to roll downwards. I will say it doesn't have the best visual clarity at times, but if you just jump whenever you see a bridge, you should be fine. It's just kind of funny being able to control a snowball, although this is more close to a snow boulder, I suppose. Plowing through all of the military defenses is very satisfying, and is a great way to end the level. 32. Homecoming Hijinks. The introduction to World 6 does a great job at showing you what the vibe is going to be. It's the island from the first game, but all frozen over and devoid of life. To anyone who's played Returns, this world is definitely one of the coolest in the game, and this level specifically is the start of that, and I think it does an amazing job replicating the jungle from Returns. It's fairly simple because of it, but it isn't too easy. It's actually fairly difficult, as you'd expect from the final world. It does fall into the World 6 trap of maybe being a little bit too short, but I don't mind that much here because it doesn't feel as prevalent of an issue as it was in Aqueduct Assault, for example. The most impressive part of this stage are these parts where you have to jump from vine wall to vine wall, especially while they're falling down or turning around. It just feels very cool to pull off successfully. And the blast barrels, which move where they are depending on the ice falling down, it's all just done so well. It really makes you feel like you're at the start of the end. The final part is definitely the best because it just combines everything and it's so cool. I think in terms of encapsulating World 6 and introducing it well, this couldn't have been better. And the level itself is still a really good time as well. 31. Alpine Incline. I'm just gonna have to say the thing I've been saying for a lot of these levels at this point. This one looks amazing. The whole vibe with all the hot air balloons and the sort of nighttime aesthetic is just so nice to look at. And as you can probably guess, you spend a lot of this level platforming on those hot air balloons, which are really fun to go on because they're either carrying platforms that you can jump on, or they're hot air balloons themselves that go down when you jump on them. And also, as the name would suggest, you spend a lot of this stage climbing up the mountain. And because of that, I like how a lot of this is almost spent sort of in the air. You feel like you can fall down a huge distance at any time, and I really like that vibe. There's also a section where you go up a hot air balloon while it's flying through the air. Oh, that's such a cool part, because once you come out the clouds, it's now a lot brighter out. And from then on, you get some more bouncy platforms and moving ones. This is a stage that really feels like a complete experience, if you know what I mean. I'm not the biggest fan of moving platforms as a whole, because it does lead to a lot of waiting, but in this game at least, you can kind of skip some of them anyway, so it's not like a big deal. Also, another thing about this stage is, again, I've said this a few times now, it's surprisingly short. I don't know why this stage particularly just feels that way, but I just think it ends a little bit sooner than I would expect it to. For a stage that's all about climbing up the mountain, I would have preferred it to have been a little bit more climbing. It's not a big deal, but I just wish it could have been longer, because then it would have been even better. It is what it is though, it's still a great stage. 30. Harvest Hazards. Here you gotta jump through a bunch of harvesting claws, and the whole level they're trying to, well, harvest some fruit, and I like how the whole stage is based around that idea. You jump on bouncy fruit, and you have to go along the production line to progress. This one section where you're on a platform that goes left and right depending on what side you stand on, and you have to collect bananas, it's just a really fun thing to have in the middle of the stage. And when you put the moving platforms onto rails that make it fall off, it's such a good iteration of what you learned earlier. Even just the enemies that spew bubbles out of them make for a good obstacle. You can really feel the difficulty start to rise once you enter the 5th world. The moving platforms as a whole are just a really fun gimmick to use because you never know when you'll be safe, but you always gotta go forward. I think the stage has an amazing progression throughout it and uses all of its mechanics masterfully. It's not the most flashy thing in the world, but I think it is an incredibly solidly designed stage. 29. Rock and Relics. Now this is a stage that does a great job combining underwater gameplay and above water gameplay. You spend a lot of it swinging above water and going on platforms right above it, and it's all stormy while you're doing so. The urchins that bounce around are an amazing obstacle to dodge, and the flow from being in the water to out of the water is really good. You don't spend too much time in the water, and you don't spend too much time outside of it. It feels like it has a very good balance. And then the bouncing ships is also just such a great idea. We have a lot of gimmicks in this game that have you bounce up, but they're all fun to deal with because they're all a little bit different in their own way. I like how a lot of this level feels very rickety, almost like you could fall into the water at any time. And this stage almost feels like a closer representation of the beach world in Returns than Seashore War from World 6 does. That stage is still better though. I already mentioned it, but just the stormy aesthetic in general is such a great addition. It makes this stage stand out from all of the other ones and have a completely different feeling to it. The lightning strikes in the background and the rain pounding down. It's unlike anything else in the game. Well, other than maybe Frantic Fields, I suppose. But it's definitely a completely different feeling. Now, the only thing I'm not the biggest fan of in this stage is, yet again, it has a secret exit. This is what I'm fine with though, because it's actually a really cool one to access. You have to bounce off of some of these urchins with Cranky Kong. It's a really cool idea, and I like how it's executed. So for that, I'll give it a bit of a pass. Especially because we get to listen to a remix of Lockjaw's Saga on here. That kind of blows that complaint, well, out of the water. I don't know if that even made sense, but, yeah, you get it. 28. Current capers. The first thing that I noticed with this stage is it's kind of got a weird placement. I'm sure this could just be a me thing, but the fact that it's at the very end of World 4 is a little bit odd. It just seems more like a start of World 4 level to me. I know that's really pedantic, but it's just, I don't know, it's something I noticed. The current, of course, is a big factor in this stage. Dodging around urchins is going to be the main thing you have to do, but you also have to hit these switches which cause the current to change. But not only that, they can open doors too. I think compared to something like Deep Keep, this stage has a lot more complex design, because the switches aren't just all in a row, they're more spread apart. And there's also brief above water sections in this stage. It's not much, but it really makes this stage feel more complete in my opinion. On paper, the current wouldn't be something that I like very much. A lot of the obstacles with it involve a lot of waiting, but I think the way it's done here makes it fairly engaging the whole way through. The parts where you have to just wait for the urchins to blow in the current aren't pace breaking, and it just feels like you're going with the flow of the water. I especially like this one segment where you need to hit switches over and over as the floor lowers. You have to dodge urchins and make sure you keep your breath up. It's a really cool part, and although it might seem like it would be slow, it's just really fun to play through, and I think it's an amazing and creative idea as well, because it makes a good use of both the switches and the current, and the main obstacle being the urchins. But another obstacle that I like are these swaying tentacle things. They really remind me of Rayman Origins, to be honest. And yet again, although they go on cycles, they're still fun to dodge around, because you have to make sure you get in between them. And on the final dash out of there while the ceiling is coming in and all these saws are falling from the sky, it's pretty exhilarating. I think this stage does a good job making what could have been annoying mechanics into really fun ones. It never feels slow or like the pace is being broken. It has a good, well, flow to it, and that's ironic because the current, you know. I still think it should have been like level 2 or 3, but I mean, yeah, let's just stop with all the semantics. 27. Bramble Scramble. As a throwback to the original Donkey Kong trilogy, this might not play like the OG Bramble Scramble, but honestly I think it's even better. There's a big emphasis on platforms that appear as you get close to them, and that makes it so that every step you take, a platform can pop up exactly where you need it to, or you might be left wondering where to go next. And something I really appreciate about this stage is just how it looks. All the thorns everywhere and leaves, it's really good looking, which is par for the course in this game, but I still feel like it's worth it to point out. The stage just has a lot of really solid platforming and cool jumps you can make. I think the way that it's built lends itself to just being fun to play through. The second half keeps the gimmick of appearing platforms, but also has a lot that raise up and down. The stage is just really good at making it feel like you're always doing something, and it also has that sort of precarious hanging high up vibe that Alpine Incline had, which is something that I enjoy quite a bit. This is just simply another very solid level. 26. Beehive Brawl. I hate to repeat myself so much, but the strongest aspect to this stage is ease easily the aesthetic. For how many times I've said it, I really do think this is one of the best looking levels in the game. Whenever games do any sort of bee-themed level, it just looks really good. I know that might sound weirdly specific, but whenever it pops up, it always just looks very nice. Here we have these big platforms, of course, attached by honey to the ceiling, and they move around and you have to climb on them. They're fun to go between, especially when they put collectibles and enemies on them. But my favorite parts of this stage are when you're inside of the beehive. You have to climb on these platforms that are falling down waterfalls of honey and avoid, well, bees. The outside sections are good too, though, because those aforementioned platforms can cross huge distances and it just feels super cool to go on. Swinging around out there to go back into the hive is just a really good through line. And then the most unique part of the stage is when you have to ride with the bees. If you grab onto what they're holding, you can ride with them, but they slowly drift downwards and you have to hit them to move up. There's some collectibles you can get and you have to cross these big gaps. It's a lot of fun and it's a good unique thing to have. And then of course they bring back the falling platforms and it all comes together so beautifully. Because just going by design, this stage might not be that insane, but how it looks elevates it to a whole new level. You even end on the big vine platforms and get launched through the air on one of them. It's a really cool set piece and an amazing way to end the stage, especially because you bounce off of stuff and it just feels super perilous. This stage was going to be a really hard one for me to dislike just because of how it looks, but I think the gameplay also does a great job living up to the visuals. 25. Crazy Clouds. Now this is probably the hardest stage in the whole game. Essentially, you have to go on these platforms which have clouds on them. Crazy clouds. And when the clouds disappear, so does the platform. There's also these wind gusts that, well, they just look like clouds, but they bounce you up into the air. I like that you platform on these plane type things, and all of the platforms move in a way that flows together very well. Because this is a World 7 stage, there are no checkpoints, which is fine, because it's supposed to be challenging. But I think the ending of the stage is the hardest part. It can catch you off guard, so it's just a little bit annoying in that respect. You get launched on a rocket, and the momentum is kind of weird to get used to. Once you know how it works, though, it isn't too bad. It's just those first couple of times where you kind of just have to die to get used to how it works. A little bit of trial and error, which isn't my favorite, but it's fine, because the level as a whole has really good design. There's a little bit of waiting involved, but it doesn't matter because it flows together with the normal gameplay. You have a lot of enemies to jump off of, and a lot of tight jumps to make. I especially like how it's one of those stages where when you beat it, it feels like it wasn't even hard at all. And I think that's the mark of a truly good stage, because while it is a little bit challenging, it's nothing you can't handle, even if there are some frustrating moments along the way. 24. Swinger Flinger. Talking about flow, this one does a really good job at that. Everything you do in this stage connects to the next so perfectly, almost to the point where it's not even difficult. And while I guess that might not be a good thing necessarily, because it is supposed to be hard, I think it's fun how you can just kind of run through this stage because everything feels so natural. You go from one thing to the next, and none of it ever feels too complicated. It's mainly based around vines that you have to climb up and swing on. You can duck under them and then avoid the spikes that are on them as well. I really like these boulder things that roll down the track. It forces you to go to where your next location is really fast. And the ending part where you have to outrun one while jumping on vines is really fun. It adds some intensity to the end of the stage, but I do have to say that this level is a little bit too short for me to like it that much. It's another case where everything it does is essentially perfect, but it just doesn't do as much as I feel like it could have. Although it is a temple level, so when having no checkpoints, maybe I should be grateful that it's not too long. 23. Levitation Station. The beginning of this course has a big focus on these blocks that appear when you get near them, sort of like Bramble Scramble, but I do think Bramble Scramble does it better, because here the blocks can, well, they can kill you if you're on top of them when they spawn in. It's not something that comes up often, but if it happens to you, it does not feel good. What I really do like about this level, though, are these platforms that sort of bounce up, almost like they're, well, levitating. You need to make sure you go on them before they fall down. And then this falling section is amazing. It's absolutely perfect. It's the best part of the level, and it's not even close. You get low gravity and have to go on platform to platform as you're falling down this huge tunnel. I can say that I wish there was more stuff like that in this level, but I don't know, maybe it would get old. I'm not really sure. It's fine how it is though, because it's still super fun for the section that you do it. And the ending part is actually really good. It makes use of the levitating blocks and the appearing ones in combination to great effect. You have to always be looking ahead to see what you have to do next. And then the final jumps, oh, it just couldn't have been any better. It's definitely a case where it's easier than it looks, but it still just feels so cool to do, because they keep popping up and you just have to keep jumping to the next one. Unfortunately though, that's the end of the stage. This honestly would be one of the best levels in the game if it was just longer. I hate to keep saying that, but really, it adds such good ideas. I think it wouldn't have hurt to just put maybe one checkpoint in the middle if they're scared of it being too long with no checkpoints, because that still could have given you long amounts of time to do without any checkpoints. But beggars don't get to choose, so we have to deal with what we got. And, well, it's still pretty good. 22. Rickety Rafters. This stage is full of interactable platforms. Ones that move once you step on them, ones that move once you pull a vine switch, or things that move once you throw a grape at a switch. The whole stage is interactable, and that's very nice. Every action you take will cause a reaction in the stage, and in that way, this is one of the most engaging levels in the game. This is pretty much the dictionary definition of a good stage. It checks all the boxes. The song is good, it looks great, the enemies are fun to deal with, there's a lot of thoughtful platforming you have to do, and to top it all off, it's not too short. I really do appreciate how this stage makes it so that you need to take it slow. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of waiting, but the way this level does it doesn't make me hate it at all, because you control the pace. It's everything that you're doing that progresses the stage. You're not waiting for the stage, you're waiting for yourself. So although the rafters might be rickety, I don't have an end to that joke. I don't have a punchline. Okay, well, we can just go to the next entry. 21. Irate 8. The octopus from Returns is back, and well, wait, is he an octopus or a squid? Kraken? The big guy. He's back. And this time you combine that with actual underwater gameplay. There's plenty of falling debris you have to dodge here, along with mines that you can't get too close to or they'll blow up. But we all know what makes this level so great. It's the parts where you have to run away from the... Well, we've already been over this. I hate to make another Rayman comparison, but it really reminds me of the serpent chase from Legends. The way he follows you up as you climb. All the bombs you have to avoid makes for a good obstacle as he chases you. Of course, along with his tentacles popping out. And then after that first chase, you get into a normal section, but he's trying to kill you. It's a perfect way to escalate the threat of the stage. And the tentacles he puts through the cracks in the walls are fun to dodge, because they always go in a set pattern. I know maybe the reasons why I like the stage are a bit surface level, but come on, it's just so cool. And the last chase section is the best part. There's a bunch of falling debris, and it's hard to keep up while the ink is rising after you. As long as you keep your cool though, you should be fine. And then when he pushes the walls together and you have to break through the last chain, only to have him rise above the surface, so you need to drop some more mines onto him. Maybe the main reason why I like this stage is just because it has a really cool set piece, but it is a really cool set piece. And it's not like the gameplay isn't anything special, it's still super solid, so I think it's justifiable to put this high. 20. Reckless Ride. Maybe I just really like how the jungle world looks, but this has to be the best rocket barrel level in the game for me. But what makes me like it so much? Especially to the point where I put it 10 whole places higher than Blurry Flurry. Well, I just think everything you dodge here is so connected with what the stage is in such a cool way. You have to go along a lot of fruit and dodge it as it's being sliced and diced up. Not to mention this Snowmad piloting a mech suit, and to be honest, that's one of my favorite parts of this stage. It feels almost similar to the bat from Returns, and overall it just makes the stage more satisfying to complete. And the camera angle used during a lot of this is unique and makes it stand out even more, because the only other level that goes for a sort of camera angle like that is High Tide Ride, which I haven't talked about yet. All the fruits are just really appealing to look at, whether they're getting sliced up or falling out of a basket. It always just looks really great. I'm sure you can make a really good argument for why Blurry Flurry is better than this one, and to some I'm sure this being so much higher is a bit weird, but it's really all in the presentation, because when I really think about it, this has to be one of the most memorable courses in the game, and that mostly comes down to the big mech. Of course, Blurry Flurry is still great, but I think this one does an even better job. 19. Fruity Factory. Take the theming of the last stage, but put it into a normal course, this time with a bunch of conveyor belts. I think dodging around all the machinery is cooler when you're in a normal type of stage, but that's of course just personal preference. What's really cool about this one are these sections where fruit gets mixed up in these big blenders below you and then floats up, sort of like the platforms in Levitation Station. It always feels satisfying to platform on, and I'll never get sick of it. You also get chased by some big fruit blenders and have to run away before they hit you. I like the way that it's done because there's barely any waiting involved. It's more so just a time limit unless you rush through the level. Dodging around the meat cleavers and drills may take some waiting, but it's all really satisfying to do. So yet again, I give it a pass. I mean, I think Tropical Freeze is one of those games that really gets a pass in most areas when it comes to waiting, because they always find some way to make it interesting. Of course, they combine the levitating platforms and the blender that chases you at the end, only to throw you down into a big vat where you have to platform up just like that one part in Levitation Station. I think as weird as it sounds, this stage is just Levitation Station, but maybe a bit better. Of course, it's not as difficult, but it kind of goes for the same idea, and it looks really good. Unfortunately for me though, there is a secret exit here, and it's not even a good one. It's just a spot that easily could have been a bonus room. Oh yeah, now it's a secret exit. It doesn't make you replay the whole level to do it, but honestly, I would prefer it if the secret exit was more interesting. It's only a small blemish on this stage though. 18. High Tide Ride. The fake out this stage does at the start is immaculate, because at the beginning you think it's just gonna be a fun little beach minecart level, and well, it is for a short while, but then the music suddenly starts to shift and you go all the way down to an underwater base. And down here you get a bit more of a 3D perspective and are able to switch rails. No other minecart stage in the game does this, so it stands out as being super unique. And even just the way everything looks down here. 20,000 looms, anyone? As the final full minecart stage in the game, this one's a bit more challenging than the others, but I think the way it does it is really cool, because you'll have a lot of stuff just popping up left and right, and you really have to be quick on your reaction times to survive. The final part though is one of the highlights. You go to 5 rails and have to go back and forth through a bunch of different obstacles. Sure, gameplay wise it's actually fairly simple, but it just looks so cool. And as we've probably seen already, if something looks cool, I'm a big fan of that. I think this stage is a beautiful send-off for the minecart levels in this game, although I don't think it's necessarily the best one. It's still incredible in its own right, and I only wish we got another minecart level in this game. 17. Abyss Abyss. I can't believe we've made it this far without mentioning a single silhouetted level, but hey, I guess they're just all really good. And well, I bet you'll never guess what I'm gonna point out first here. The stage looks fantastic, like all the silhouetted levels do, but this one particularly just feels really mystical. All of the glowing sea anemones, even down to just this really big fish that you wake up. You really feel like you're in some sort of magic, I don't know, magic ocean, or magic abyss, I suppose. And similar to current capers, this stage also has brief sections where you're above water. This time not above ground though. You're in a sunken ship, which I think is just so cool, because of course you're in an abyss, why would you go all the way up to the surface? And I think it's kind of funny how this stage goes for a completely different vibe than you might expect. For an abyss stage you might think it would be something a little bit more intimidating, but this stage really goes for a more magical feel. Just all of the visuals and jellyfish and everything about it. Not to mention the music, which I'm just gonna say it, this might be my favorite song in the whole game. It's a close call, but this one is honestly perfect. There's absolutely nothing that could have been made better about it, and this song alone is such a huge part of why this level is great. You also have some switches that you can only hit from one direction, and they're a fine addition, but I'm not gonna lie to you, the main reason why I like this stage so much has nothing to really do with all of the mechanics. It's completely flawless on an aesthetic level, because it just looks gorgeous and has, well, one of the best songs in the game, if not the best. So it was gonna rank highly regardless, but it's still fun to play on top of that, and we got some engaging sections, especially near the end where you need to hit a bunch of switches in a row while the walls keep closing in. I think this stage is near perfect, but I do think it could have done with having a little bit more cool gameplay segments. It's not that it doesn't have anything to it, but this stage more than any other really leans into the vibes. And while those are insanely good, if it just had a little bit more going on in the gameplay department, I think this could have been contender for the best stage in the game. 16. Slippy Spikes. For a temple level, this is a very unique vibe. Of course, that's because everything is coated in a thick layer of ice, which makes you slippy spike all over the place. This whole stage is based off of moving platforms, which, well, I'm realizing now that this game does a lot of that, and it's super satisfying to try to get between the cycles as fast as you can. Whether it's the ones that move up and down, or the ones that are swinging side to side. It's all fun to go around, and for a temple stage, this one feels a lot more meaty than some of the others. So I'm not going to be complaining about this one being too short. The way that the pieces of the stage move back and forth and click in together is super satisfying to play through, and I think it's the navigation of the stage that makes it so good, because you have to figure out your best path, and sometimes that can be a little bit tricky to figure out. And then the last slide at the end, it's just the best way they could have ended it. Of course, it's not that hard, but honestly, I don't really mind that. The rest of the stage is pretty difficult anyway. There's not too much to say here, it's just a very engaging and satisfying course. 15. Jammin' Jams. I don't know what it is about this stage. To the untrained eye, it may just look like another jungle level. Not only that, but another stage based around waiting. But I think there's two factors that make this one so good. Number one, everything is just fine-tuned to its best extent. Everything makes sense here, and it all flows together very nicely, especially having to do with the enemies that go around the walls as you dodge the big spikes, and the platforms that go in and out while others are in or out, it all works together very well. And this is also a stage that makes a good use of barrel blast sections. It doesn't overuse them, and whenever they pop up, they're fun to go through, because you just have to dodge around a bunch of spikes, and it feels very satisfying to get through them all. This one short section where you have to go down a rope while spikes close in and out around you, it wasn't necessary, and it doesn't even last very long, but stuff like that just adds so much to the feeling of a stage, and the experience as a whole. Jumping on appearing and disappearing platforms is always going to be fun, because it'll make you feel like a good player no matter what, but this stage just makes such masterful use of them. And the second thing that makes this level so great is, well, the music. Abyss still probably has my favorite track, but this is definitely up there. Don't know what it is about this one that makes me enjoy it so much, but I just love the song. And it's a little bit hard to articulate how far that goes into making an enjoyable stage, but if the song is good, that lifts up the whole thing by quite a bit. The last barrel blast section at the end is pretty tricky and actually took me a little bit to get down, but it's a really cool idea, so I appreciate what it does. This stage serves as yet another excellent reminder on how Tropical Freeze seems to make basically everything it does enjoyable. Because like I said, a lot of these ideas could have went bad if there wasn't good execution, but everything is fine-tuned to a degree where even the smallest jumps are fun to take. 14. Sawmill Thrill. Now this is what I consider to be the best minecart stage in the game. The amount of moving parts in this level, especially for a World 2 stage, is insane. If you remember what I said about High Tide Ride, where it felt like there's a lot of stuff popping up all over the place and you had to react, this stage has the exact same feeling with all the saws cutting apart platforms for you to jump on. But not only that, there's variety here too. A bit of the way through, you get transformed into a boat, which controls mostly the same as the minecart, but it has a completely different feeling to it. And whenever you jump into the water, you get submerged for a little while, which changes up the gameplay. Again, this is just one of those small things that Tropical Freeze does. Especially with the music shift in that section, it just makes it stand out so much. But then when you go back into the sawmill, it's even better, because things are really dialed up to 11. You have stuff flying all over the place. And the one section where you have to jump on 3 small platforms as they pop up, oh, it's just so satisfying to do. And that makes it not only the best minecart level, but the best vehicle stage too. Again though, there is a secret exit here, and it's not a very creative one either. You just drop at the end instead of going up, and that is at the very end. I don't want to complain about them every time they show up though, so I'll just move on from it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, and I think it could have been a little bit more creative at the very least, but it's there, and I still think this is a great stage. 13. Precarious Pendulums. This is the embodiment of straight up platforming. There's nothing complicated to the stage, you just kinda gotta go through it, but everything about it is so intricate that style of design just works fantastic. The way the pendulums swing around can be a little bit trippy at times, but if you just remember that they always go in a set pattern, you can jump over them exactly how you need to. There might be a little bit of waiting involved, but again, it's not the kind that I dislike, because I mean, you know, it's precarious. And you also have a lot of parts where you need to bounce on enemies' heads. It's almost like a mini timer on how long you can be there for, but as long as you get to the next pendulum in time, you should be good. This is definitely a course that requires you to be constantly moving, which is funny because a lot of it is spent waiting for cycles. But I think out of all the temple levels in the game, this one is one of the most natural to play, which again, that's not necessarily a good or bad thing, but it certainly makes you feel like you're good at the game when you're doing it. I wish there was more to talk about here, but when it comes to stages that are literally just pure platforming, I mean, you talk about the platforming, that's all there is to it. Good thing though that this level does an amazing job at that. 12. Scorch and Torch. It's funny how we go from a level that I like almost entirely due to its platforming to a stage that I like almost entirely due to its theming. That's not to say there isn't fun gameplay here though. You have to extinguish fires and jump on burning ropes. I especially like the parts where you have to climb up falling trees as they get torched to the ground. But we all know what the biggest standout of this stage is. It's how it looks and the music. The story all of that tells is very interesting because it would have been really easy to write a song that focused on the intensity of the fire. I mean, it's a fire stage after all, but that's not what this is. The theme here instead represents the damage caused. It's sad and desperate, and for a moment you forget you're playing the funny Donkey Kong game, because you can clearly hear in the song how this went from a bright and vibrant ecosystem to a desolate hellscape, and that's reflected in the gameplay. There's hot coals that catch on fire after you walk on them, and burning totems that fall over, which the keen eye might recognize from Returns. And that's just another genius way to show how everything that you once knew is getting destroyed. I'm sad I couldn't have put this in the top 10, but while this stage still has fun gameplay, that is the main thing that I like about a level, so I just think there are others that are more fun for me. 11. Seashore War. If you want a stage that perfectly uses the premise of World 6, look no further. This one's of course based off of the beach world, but now it's all frozen over, with glaciers along the water, and instead of pirate ships, you now have war warships. Of course, with those ships, you can pull them out of the water, which is an incredible gimmick. I'm not going to pretend that the logistics of it make sense, since, you know, you're standing on the ship as you're pulling it up, but it doesn't really matter. It's just cool. The way you see all of the masts and tilt ships into the water depending on what side you're standing on, it has a unique vibe from almost every other stage in the game, and a big part of that is also due to the song. It's very slow and tragic, almost like it's focusing on the destroyed ecosystem of the island. It turns this from just another haha goofy Donkey Kong stage to being more of a fight for DK's own homeland. The section with the mast spinning in the ocean is my favorite part of the level. It just has that same thing I've talked about earlier, where you feel so cool jumping on them. And then the ending section where ice is falling over in the back as you traverse the pier caps up the level nicely. I know we're not in the top 10 yet, but I'd say this marks the start of my absolutely favorite stages. Because honestly, the fact that I'm not able to put this one in the top 10 saddens me a lot. 10. Grassland Groove. This is the last in a streak of 3 levels where the main thing I like it for is the aesthetic. And if any one of those 3 would make it into the top 10, it would be this one. I don't have some deep nerd emoji analysis for this one. It just looks beautiful. Anyone with eyes can see that. So, sorry if you don't have eyes, I guess. That probably sucks. The swaying platforms with animal faces painted onto them are the perfect platform for this level, because the spike balls that move on top of them are fun to dodge, but they also fit the theme incredibly. And when you get to the giraffes and zebras, it just keeps getting better. What looks to be fireworks going up in the background, and the whole stage just gives the vibe of a festival. Even the trees are dancing along. I mean, I actually think it's literally impossible to dislike this stage. It just has such an infectious energy to it. The sunset in the background is gorgeous, and it's fun to play on too. There's a big emphasis on climbing on stuff, which really works with all the animals you have to go on, especially when you get to the snakes, because you have to climb along their whole body. This stage really is the embodiment of the Savannah world, and I don't think anyone is going to be mad about this ranking so highly. 9. Platform problems. And of course, going from a stage that I mostly like for its aesthetic, right to one that is basically only platforming. I mean, how could you guess? Is it in the name or something? Jokes aside, I don't want to overuse the word perfection, but I really don't think there's any flaws here. The platforms that fall down a track as you jump on them are tricky to get used to, but once you do, it just feels amazing. It's always a close call, because if it falls off, well, you're dead. And then the other platforms are only solid while they're on a certain part of the track. It means so that you have to time your jumps as well as possible. And again, it's just really satisfying to do. Going from one thing to the next is natural, and when you get into a flow state, nothing can stop you. Even the puzzle pieces make it even cooler, because it gives you a more strict time window. This isn't my favorite temple stage in the game, but it's pretty close. And that's not due to any fault of its own. The only thing this level has a problem with is being bad. And I know that's not a good joke, but I'm just gonna keep it in, because I wrote it in the script, and yeah, whatever. 8. Cliffside Slide. This is the part where I start the section talking about how beautiful the level is. But you already knew that. I mean, I used it in the thumbnail for a reason. Out of all the silhouetted levels in this and Returns, this is probably the best looking one. I mean, it's a well-known color combination for a reason. Black and white just work together very well. And another thing that works well is the whole of the stage, because the entire time you're fighting against an avalanche. Climbing up a cliff that's actively pushing you downwards is not only an amazing concept, but incredibly epic. This stage is fast-paced at times. It almost feels like a temple stage in some spaces, but that's a good thing, because unlike temple stages, this one's allowed to be a bit longer because it can use checkpoints. That said though, I still wish it was, you know, a little bit longer. I understand that since it's so fast-paced, you kind of speed through it, so maybe it isn't even that short, but it's just so much fun that it ends a little bit too soon. It's unfortunate, but also I think if you took a shot every time I complained about levels being too short, you'd probably just die. So I'll leave it at that. This is a beautiful stage, and I mean, it's based off of the cliffs from Returns. Of course it was going to be good. 7. Bopopolis. This is the final and best temple level in the game. Why? Well, because out of every single one, this has the best flow. It does the thing where at first it seems insurmountable, but by the time you beat it, it doesn't even seem too bad. As per the name, most of the stage is spent bouncing on enemies, and while this might go without saying, that's incredibly satisfying to do. Timing your button presses to get the high bounce, and then obviously, you know, actually landing on the enemies gets to be a very fun challenge. And while, of course, this level isn't that long, it feels like a continuous string of jumps. You're constantly moving and in the air, so it doesn't actually really feel short, because there's absolutely no downtime here. And the best part, bar none, is the end. You bounce on so many enemies in a row that you start getting lives. Not only does that just feel good to see, but the dopamine you get from landing all of the jumps is unparalleled. So for that, Bopopolis gets to be the best best tempo in the game, and while I like the others, I think its spot at the best is pretty much uncontested. 6. Frozen Frenzy. I know I made this joke about Cliffside Slide, but this stage is based off of the factory world, so I would assume that it was going to be amazing, and good thing it is. The factory was my favorite world in Returns, so it should come as no surprise that this stage is just as great. Of course now it's frozen over, so you have to start the stage by reactivating the factory. That's a very fun touch, and the rest of the stage deals with electricity. You have to make sure that you're not standing on the wrong place at the wrong time, because the current will do damage to you. There's a lot of precise jumps here, and you have to be very careful with your movements. Tilting platforms are tough to go between, and you never feel safe, because even when you're on a platform that doesn't have electricity somewhere near it, it's probably slippery. Either that, or it crumbles apart, which I've talked enough about how much I like crumbling platforms. But they're an amazing addition here that adds a lot, because this whole stage feels very perilous, especially when you have to be so calculated for most of it, and then the crumbling ice as you pick up the pace. And you want to know the best thing about this stage? It has a secret exit. Now that might be confusing to hear because I don't like secret exits at all. And that's true, I don't. But leave it to this stage to make it good, because this is my favorite secret exit in the game. You need to use donkeykong to pass over some spikes. And while it is at the end of the level, which is annoying, it's actually kind of cool because it turns into some sort of challenge. Of course, in a stage like this, you would want either Diddy or Dixie Kong, but having a secret exit right at the end that requires Cranky almost forces you to handicap yourself, and it's super satisfying to get through. I still don't love having to play through this stage 2 times, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that this was a good secret exit. And hey, at the very least, I love this stage, so replaying it again isn't such a bad thing. 5. Dynamite Dash. This wasn't one I was expecting to like as much as I do, but what can I say? The design here is some of the best in the game. In the whole level, you're going to be activating switches which will blow up dynamite, and a lot of the switches are placed on the very platform that's going to blow up. It makes for a hectic and fast-paced stage, where you always have to be quick on your feet, and make sure you understand how what you do is going to affect the stage. It also combines the dynamite with crumbling platforms too, which of course fit in very naturally. When the platforms start moving from side to side, it adds a whole new dimension to what you have to do. As you can see, the stage is big on timing, and of course being fast. As you get closer to the end, dynamite starts blowing up behind you, so you have to be even quicker. The playstyle that this stage promotes is really fun, and the fact that this stage forces you to play it in such a way is good, because it gets to be built around this fast-paced style of gameplay that I really enjoy. At the very end, you have to go on a zipline as the whole cavern collapses behind you. It doesn't use the rest of the mechanics from the stage, but it encapsulates the themes fairly well. And the final barrel blast, while everything is exploding, it's just completely epic. 4. Horntop Hop. If a stage has a big emphasis on music, you know it's gonna be good. What about this one? Well, it's good and then some. Before I even think about talking about the gameplay, I should definitely point out how amazing it looks. The autumn aesthetic is just perfect. All of the orange leaves look gorgeous, especially with all the ones that you have to platform on. And talking about platforming, this level has 2 main elements. Of course, the leaves, which act as moving platforms in the air, and then the horns, which will blow you upwards. These two things combined make for some very fun platforming. And should I remind you that this is only World 2? You wouldn't expect World 2 to get this complex already, but hey, Tropical Freeze is just built different, I suppose. You also have enemies that come out of the wind gusts. And those are fun too, because they come out to the music. And you have to pay close attention to whether it's going to be an enemy or an item that pops out. It's just another aspect to pay attention to, and just another thing that goes along with the soundtrack, which of course this stage has a great one. The cherry on top is the ending section where you get blown up a huge horn. Sure, it's a little slow, but the whole idea is that you have to grab onto vine walls and make sure you can maintain your progress, because each interval the wind blows you up, you can only make it up a certain amount. The themes and the gameplay complement each other in the best way possible, and this stage is the epitome of why World 2 is so good. The music, aesthetics, and gameplay are all some of the best in the whole game. 3. Frosty Fruits. This is the only ice level outside of World 6, and somehow it's better than all of them. The whole world you've been seeing these fruits get harvested, and this is what they're being made into. The whole stage is slippery, and that enhances the gameplay by making everything just a little bit more scary to jump between. Ice blocks will fall down and you have to be careful to not get crushed. My favorite part of this stage are these popsicle platforms. They start falling down when you step on them. And mechanically, it's not that complicated, but combined with the visuals, it's just perfectly creative. I like how there's this sort of foggy vibe here. It feels like you're in a fridge, which, well, is quite fitting. There's a lot of spikes you have to go under, and fruits encased in ice that you need to bounce off of. I just think the ice combined with the greenery makes for a great theme. And of course, as with all these high-ranking levels, the music music is perfect and makes the stage feel as chill as it is. What I like here is that the ice is used in really creative ways, not just to make things harder, although it does do that too. That's what makes it the best snowy level in the game, because there's a lot of parts we have to slide around, whether that's under spikes or into bumpers that bounce you into other ones. You can get a lot of momentum going and blaze through sections here. For a game named Tropical Freeze, this is the embodiment of that theme. So I think if you're looking for the level that represents the game the best, this is probably that, although it's not my personal favorite. 2. Busted Bayou. This is the first silhouette level in the game and the last one on our list. I mean, hey, let's just go through the checklist, should we? It looks incredible, as all silhouette levels do, but the greens really work well with this aesthetic. And speaking of aesthetic, this is another contender for best track in the game. It's so vibey and complements the stage perfectly, because just like the rest of World 1, this stage takes place in a plain and a forest. Going through the mechanical parts silhouetted gives it a whole new feeling, and that theme in general just fits perfectly with the silhouettes. There's vines growing everywhere, and plenty of mechanical platforms to jump around. I especially love this one sequence where you have to pull a switch to create a staircase and then roll down it. This level is the master of set pieces, and every second feels like a new thing is coming at you. You never get bored here. Having everything sort of strung up by vines and trees makes it so that things can swing around and sway. This is one of the most vibey levels in the game, and for what it's worth, I enjoy that vibe a lot. I mean, clearly, it's all the way up at number 2. It's almost funny how much higher this is than all the other World 1 levels, but I really think it stands head and shoulders over the rest. And even the ending is perfect too. You go back and forth on a plane's hull that's swinging through the trees. It's just an amazing set piece if I've ever seen one. I debated putting this as well as Frosty Fruits in the first place spot at some point, so I do consider this one of the very best. But I do think there was one other that has it beat, even if it's just by a little. 1. Wingding. When it comes to everything I love about this game, this stage has it all. A soundtrack with literally 5 different versions, a new one to play during each section of the stage, which, by the way, that's insane attention to detail. No other game would do that, but this game does, and that's just such a cool thing that it did. But not only that, it has great gameplay. There's a lot of zip lines and bells you need to hit, and then crumbling platforms too, which, you know, I like crumbling platforms. The zipline sections are a big part of this stage though, and they're all very fun. They have the same high-speed intensity as a minecart section, but of course you're suspended over the air. You need to hit bells to progress, so it's just like a nice side thing that you get to do while you're riding down the zipline. But of course, we have a bunch of going back and forth, because you also go to normal gameplay quite a lot. Going from crumbling platform to crumbling platform can be scary, but if you manage to get through, you'll be good. And as the level progresses, the zipline sections start getting more and more intense. Stuff keeps falling over, including the ziplines you're on, with more hard jumps as well. And then you eventually end up swinging right through a window. When it comes to set pieces, this level's the king of that. And you also have quite a few secrets here too. Anything you want from a stage in this game, this one has it. All the way to the end where you ring the big bell and have to climb up a crumbling building. I'm sure most people won't agree with this being number 1, just because statistically that's not very likely. But what I'm sure we can all agree on is that no matter where you would rank it exactly, this stage has everything that makes this game amazing and then some. I have to go back to the music for a second, because while I touched on it earlier, I really mean that the fact that the song has that many different versions for where you are on the stage just shows how much attention to detail was put into this level. Of course, that's true for every stage in this game, but something about this one in particular just has that little oomph. It's a step above everything else, in my opinion anyway. So for having every positive I can think of while also having no downsides, Wingding is my favorite level in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. But we're not done yet though. I said at the start that I would average the level rankings together to create a world ranking, so let's do it. In 7th, and the worst world in the game, is Lost Mangroves. I can't say I'm too surprised about that. As the starter world, its levels tend to be quite simple, and a lot of them ended up ranking lower or towards the middle of the list because of that. The only one even bringing its score up at all is Busted Bayou, because the next highest ranking level from that was Trunk Twister, all the way at number 34. The theming of this world is great, but its levels are just simpler than the rest, and there's nothing wrong with that. 6th is Seabreeze Cove. This is another one that I expected. Not only the obvious that it had my personal least favorite level in the game, but also just because as a water world, it just doesn't have as high of a ceiling as the other ones. Because as I said earlier, I just don't think water levels can be as amazing as a grounded level. It still has amazing ones though, so this world's nothing to scoff at. At 5th is Secret Seclusion. You can take this one with a grain of salt because I'm sure some people wouldn't even include it in this ranking, mainly because it only has 3 levels. One of them I thought was a bit mid, and then the other 2 were pretty good, so that ranks it at here. Of course, it's a very short world, so it's hard to say how it would have fared if it had more levels. But as is, it's a fun thing to do after you beat the main game. In fourth is Donkey Kong Island. I was a little bit surprised at this one at first, but the more I thought about it, it made sense. This one has the most levels of any in the game, so with having that many, of course some of them were going to be ranking lower than others. In fact, out of all of the worlds, this one had the highest amount of variance. It had 2 levels in the bottom 3, but it also had 3 levels in the top 10. So while this world has very high highs, it also just has some more mid stages. So it being in the middle here makes a bit of sense to me. In third is Bright Savannah. Out of all the worlds, this one took the longest to see an entry on the list, so its lowest low is higher than any other world. But while it had a lot of good levels, only one of them managed to reach the top 10. This is a very quality world, but it just didn't have very many of my absolute favorites. And it also did have a few that were a bit more middling. In second was Autumn Heights. This world of course had my favorite stage in the game, and again, just like World 6, 3 of the top 10. Outside of that, it had some pretty good stages, but then also some not as great ones. Crumble Cavern and Rodent Ruckus didn't rank very highly, and I think that's the main thing bringing this world down. Honestly, if you asked me before making this ranking what my favorite world was, I probably would have said Autumn Heights. But I guess the numbers don't lie, and the average of the number 1 world was actually quite a bit higher than this one. So that of course leads the best world to be Juicy Jungle. And this makes sense. It just has the highest quantity of great levels, along with a few entries in the top 10. The only stage from this world that ranked low was Panicky Paddles. Other than that, everything was in the middle of the list or higher. The through line being the production line of the fruit makes it more coherent than most of the other worlds. So as a whole, I do think it deserves to be the best world in the game. With all of that said, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is amazing for many reasons, but the levels are the vehicle in which every one of those things is delivered. Some of them aren't as good as others, but there isn't a single truly bad stage in the whole game, and that's one hell of an accomplishment. Every level has its own positives, and for that reason, you could realistically do a list in the complete opposite order as mine, and I wouldn't really be able to tell you you're wrong, except for Busted Bayou. Everyone loves Busted Bayou. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, I'd appreciate a subscribe. And like always, see ya if I see ya.